The Sex Dungeon. Start the smaller hook in the vise. Take wraps of thread from the eye to the bend. Then you can cut the tag end of thread off. Select a fluffy marabou feather. Measure it 2.5 times the hook shank. Then transfer that measurement to your off hand. Cut the excess off and tie it down 2 eyes back from the hook eye. At this point you should have 1.5 times the hook shank in length of marabou hanging off the bend of the hook. Then grab 4 or 5 flashabou fibers. Fold them over your thread and tie them on top of the hook. Separate 2 sections, and as you wrap down, bring each section to opposite sides, and you should have 2 sections of 4 or 5 pieces of flashabou on either side of the tail. Then cut that to just longer than the marabou tail. Then dog ear some wire, put that little dog ear on the thread, and then wrap back, securing the wire. Now tie in a schlappen feather by the tip. Create a 4 or 5 inch dubbing noodle on your thread. Then starting from the back of the tying spot up to the front, make touching wraps of dubbing, creating an even body. If you had to add a little bit more at the end, you can. Because this schlappen fiber is fairly matted, I'm going to stroke the fibers back as I wind up. 6 or 8 wraps should be good, and when you reach the thread, make a couple consecutive wraps to create a nice dense collar. Then go ahead and secure the stem and cut the excess off. Create a nice little head. Then grab the wire and shimmy it up through the hackle fibers. No need to make one wrap over every single wrap of hackle. Once you reach the thread, secure the wire and helicopter it off. Then grab a strand of rubber leg. Fold it over the thread and tie it on the far side, sweeping it back in the process. Then do the same to the near side. Then after that, whip finish your thread. Then you can cut your thread off. Grab the rubber legs and cut them off to just where they reach the tips of the marabou tail. Then add a dot of Sally Hansen's to the head of the hook to really lock those thread wraps in place. Then start the larger hook in your vise and take wraps from the eye to about halfway down the hook shank. Then, about 2 eyes back from the hook eye, loosely place a set of dumbbell eyes. Once it's somewhat secured, take those eyes to the bottom of the hook shank. Then invert your hook and start securing the dumbbell eyes as you would in regular position, taking figure 8 wraps around the eyes. Then take a couple wraps above the hook shank but below the dumbbell eyes to really lock those thread wraps in place. Once you set your thread to the side of the dumbbell eyes, go ahead and apply some Sally Hansen's to the wraps. This will really secure those dumbbell eyes so they will not rotate around the hook shank. Then grab some wire. This isn't the kind you wrap around. This is an intruder wire meant to secure 2 hooks together in articulated streamers and intruders. Leave a little section off as you tie it in, and then fold that little section back to really lock the wire in place. Then fold it and measure that measurement. Then cut that measurement off and wrap back to about the barb. Then grab 2 large glass beads and thread the wire through those beads. And then going through the top of the hook eye on the previous fly tied, slide that wire through the eye. Then thread it back through the beads, making sure not to cross over the wire in the process. Then, as you pull that wire out through the beads, you should leave about maybe a half a centimeter in length of a loop of wire for that second hook to move. Then fold another section of that wire back to really lock it in place. Grab some more Sally Hansen's and apply it to the wraps over the wire to make sure that they will not slip out. Then grab yet another marabou feather and measure it the same way you did as the last one, 2.5 times the hook shank. Wrap about an inch down onto the shank, leaving about 1.5 times the hook shank in length, sticking out the bend of the hook, over the second fly. It should just about cover the body of the second fly, or the first fly. Then grab a couple more strands of flashabou, tie them in the same way as you did the second, bringing each section to the side and cutting them off, just extending past the marabou tail. Then dog ear some wire, hook that dog ear onto the thread and tie it down, and then bring it to the near side of the hook. Then grab another schlappen feather, strip the little fuzzies off the bottom of the stem, and tie this one at the bottom of the stem. Doing this will create a taper of hackle, starting smaller at the back of the fly, getting bigger to the middle, and then from big to small when you reach the dumbbell eyes. Like a bait fish, it's got more of a natural taper. Create another small dubby noodle and wrap up to just behind the dumbbell eyes, creating a nice even body. Then take open spiral wraps of the schlappen. Again, about 6 or 8 should do it. I like to just go evenly spaced up until where I reach the back of the dumbbell eyes. Once I reach the dumbbell eyes, take wraps of thread to secure the hackle wraps. Then cut the stem off. Take your wire and shimmy it up through the hackle wraps just like in the first fly. Once you reach the dumbbell eyes, go ahead and tie that wire off and helicopter it off. Then tie in 2 more rubber legs like we did during the first part. These will be tied in behind the dumbbell eyes still. Tie one on the far side, sweep it back, and then tie one on the near side and sweep it back. No need to cut these to length yet, as their extra length will help get them out of the way when we're tying the head. Then strip a couple of the fuzzies off from a EP dub brush and tie it in with a little metal excess of the brush sticking on. And once you get it good and secure, sweep the fibers back and start making touching wraps till you reach the back of the dumbbell eyes. Each wrap you should sweep all the feathers back and kind of comb them out. Then once you reach the back of the dumbbell eyes, take figure 8 wraps around the dumbbell eyes to make sure that no thread is showing beneath it. Once you've gotten all the eyes covered, take a couple more wraps in front of the dumbbell eyes, still pushing all the fibers back as you go. After about 2 or 3, secure the brush off with wraps of thread and then cut it off with a bad pair of scissors that you don't mind getting dull. Then go ahead and whip finish your fly. After that, you can cut your thread off, and then it'd be time to cut the rubber legs to shape. Fold them back. Oh, at this point, you can shape the head. I like to cut the fibers on the bottom a little bit smaller so the fly rides right, and then taper it towards the hook eye. Now you can grab your rubber legs and cut them off just where to the second tail of marabou is. Then apply some Sally Hansen's, and that's the fly.